Hey guys, it's SlaveToTheGames, and today we're going to be talking about the game graphic and display settings. I'd like to first say before we jump in, if there's anything you need me to explain more in depth after watching this video, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll do just that. Anyways, as always, I hope you guys enjoy the video and learn something new. The first subject we're going to be covering is display resolution. Resolution is the amount of pixels present on your screen, which dictates the overall quality of the image. You'll see this expressed as two numbers, such as 1920 by 1080 or 2560 by 1440p. The first number indicates the width of the screen in pixels, while the second is its height in pixels. Setting this higher than your monitor's resolution won't increase the resolution either, resulting in loss of detail and an unnecessary increase in GPU. The second thing is FPS and refresh rate. FPS represents the number of frames per second the game sends to your monitor. The FPS that your monitor can display is known as the refresh rate, which is measured in hertz. Standard monitors have a refresh rate of 60 hertz. You can go higher than what your monitor is capable of, but this can cause visual issues for you and if you record or stream for your viewers as well. Most of the time this will cause screen tearing. Nonetheless, a higher refresh rate and FPS will allow smoother gameplay among other advantages. The third one is texture quality. This is how good elements of the in-game environment look. Textures are skins that sit on top of the basic blocks of the three-dimensional environment. As a rule of thumb, the higher this is, the better the world will look. How much each quality setting alters the overall look of the game will vary depending on each game specifically. And now number 4, shader quality. Adjusting this will determine how clear the light and dark balance is in games. 5. Anti-Aliasing. Aliasing occurs when low-resolution images produce pixelated lines and curves. This is a result of using square pixels to represent rounded real-life objects. Anti-Aliasing injects blocks of the same or similar color around the lines of an image, creating a smoother effect. This reduces the blocky look around the edges of items in your game. Depending on the AA methods used, it may tax the GPU a small or large amount. Anti-Aliasing is more effective at lower resolutions. At higher resolutions like 4K, the pixels are so small that any aliasing effect is negligible. 6. VSync and screen tearing. VSync, shortened for vertical synchronization, synchronizes the FPS output of your game with the refresh rate of your monitor in order to prevent screen tearing. Screen tearing occurs when your GPU outputs more frames per second than your monitor can handle. Thus, the card sends a new frame before your monitor has finished showing you the previous one. Screen tearing isn't always obvious while playing a game, and you'll likely notice it if you watch slowed down playback of recorded games. Enabling VSync removes virtually all screen tearing from your gameplay, however it has two downsides. The first is that it can introduce input lag, which is when your button inputs don't immediately take effect in the game. The other problem is that if the game's FPS falls below your monitor's refresh rate, it locks the frame rate to a lower synchronized value like 30 FPS. This can lead to games stuttering unnecessarily. G.SKILL or VSync tend to solve this stuttering problem. Number 7. Tessellation. In-game textures are comprised of quads, polygonal shapes made of triangles which form over the shape of objects. Tessellation allows graphic cards to repeat quads multiple times over any given surface. The repeated patterning allows for texture displacement, which creates bumps in landscapes. You'll notice this most clearly when looking at surfaces like brick walls. With high tessellation, these will have realistic bumps and curvatures. Without it, they'll look smooth and less believable. In most games, tessellation is not that taxing on your GPU. Number 8 is ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion creates realistic shadow transitions between different physical objects. Ambient occlusion in-game, while noticeable, will not dictate the shadow quality. Ambient occlusion will lighten or darken shadows in relation to other objects. Number 9 is filtering and anisotropic filtering. Filtering allows games to smoothly transition between high-quality textures near the player and low-quality textures farther away, where you can't see them as clearly. Anisotropic filtering reduces the amount of texture blurring at far distances. These anisotropic filtering effects are best seen at oblique angles rather than directly in front of your character. Anisotropic filtering, on the other hand, replicates similar texture quality at close and far distances alike. Number 10. HDR or high dynamic range. HDR improves the contrast between light and dark portions of your display. This makes the dark parts look darker and the bright parts look brighter. You'll need an HDR capable display to take advantage of it, and obviously a game that can also do the same and allow you to utilize it. 11 is bloom. Bloom is an effect that attempts to make light in-game feel brighter. You'll notice bloom when you see light spilling over the edges of objects like characters and walls. It's supposed to replicate the feel of extremely bright light overwhelming your eye or a camera. 12 is motion blur. Motion blur introduces fuzziness to the image when rotating the in-game camera. Like bloom, it's typically used for a cinematic effect as it mimics similar properties seen in movies. Number 13, field of view. Field of view, or FOV, defines how wide of an angle your character sees in a first-person game. Increasing this lets you see more of the world at once, essentially enhancing your peripheral vision. Depending on the game and how high you set it or how low, this can also cause issues. Number 14 is shadow quality. Shadow quality determines how good shadows look in your game. At a low setting, you'll see a less defined, blocky shadow that sort of fits the outline of the objects casting it, while higher settings will produce sharper, more realistic shadows. Number 15 is view distance. It determines how far into the distance you can see. As you raise the view distance, you'll see more objects near the horizon. On low view distance settings, these objects still exist, they just abruptly appear on screen as you run toward them. Number 16 is upscaling and downsampling or downscaling. This setting lets you keep the display resolution the same while adjusting the resolution the game is being rendered at, but not the UI. If the rendering resolution is lower than your display resolution, it will be upscaled to fit your display resolution and most likely look terrible. If you render the game at a higher resolution than your display resolution, the image will be downsampled or downscaled and will look much better at a high cost to performance. Number 17 is G-Sync and FreeSync. The display's refresh rate changes with the frame rate. This is best used with V-Sync as well, though you do need compatible cards and monitors. Enabling this with V-Sync will help stop the stuttering that comes with, well, putting V-Sync on. Number 18, multi-sampling or MSAA. Well, it's more efficient than super sampling, but still demanding, and that's basically it. Number 19 is FXAA or Fast Approximate. Rather than analyzing the 3D models, FXAA is a post-processing filter, meaning it applies to the whole scene after it has been rendered, and it's very efficient. It also catches edges inside textures, which MSAA misses. This is the default in many modern games because it has very little overhead, though it tends to miss a lot of jaggies. Number 20, Deep Learning Super Sampling or DLSS. Now I'm sure some of you have actually heard about this as of late. DLSS leverages a deep neural network to extract multi-dimensional features of the rendered scene and intelligently combine details from multiple frames to construct a high-quality final image. DLSS uses fewer input samples than traditional techniques such as TAA, while avoiding the algorithmic difficulty such techniques face with transparency and other complex scene elements. In other words, it's better and more efficient at doing the things temporal AA does, or at least it's supposed to look better once it has been properly trained for a specific game. When it's not properly trained, it can cause a lot of blurriness. 21. Depth of field. It's a simulation of true depth of field in a camera lens. Objects in the background are blurred out while the subject is in perfect focus. Many games limit the effect to when there's a single object at the forefront of your view or when you're using a zoom or aiming down sights. 22 is shadow distance, basically the distance at which shadows will be rendered. 23 is chromatic aberration, a recreation of the effect seen in wide aperture camera lenses where different wavelengths of light aren't quite brought to the same point of focus, resulting in colored fringing along high contrast edges. 24, and second to last, is global illumination, a system of lighting techniques that model how light bounces from one surface to another. Turning it off can improve performance greatly, but limits the game to only lighting from direct sources. And finally, we reach the last one for this video, which is number 25, ray tracing. Ray tracing is a technique that makes light in video games behave like it does in real life. It works by simulating actual light rays, using an algorithm to trace the path that a beam of light would take in the physical world. Using this technique, game designers can make virtual rays of light appear to bounce off objects, cast realistic shadows, and create lifelike reflections. And now we've come to the end of the video, guys. I hope you guys learned something new. If not, then at least hopefully you got a brush up on all this information. If there's something you feel I could do better at explaining with, or you want me to explain in more detail just because you, well, just want to learn more about it, please leave a comment below. This is also my first time doing a video specifically like this, and I'm trying to take what I've learned from other videos and apply it here, so any tips and advice are greatly appreciated. Please keep it constructive though. And then if you did enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Think about optionally joining my Patreon or checking out my merch store to help further support me and what I do, and then maybe, just maybe, joining the Discord community in the link below. As always, guys, it's been fun, and I really hope you enjoyed the video. I'm gonna catch you guys in my next live stream or the time, I release the next video. So once again, you guys have a nice day, and I'll see you guys later.